Hello everyone, it's me, Robert Bennett, and I'm here to talk to you about things.
Wow.
In all honesty, I had mentioned on the internet once that I was going to do one of these things where I kind of spilled out my thoughts, and people said, good, I would like for you to do that. But then instead of doing that, I didn't do that. I did lots of other things instead, but not that thing. But now I decided that I am not going to be a dirtbag anymore, and I'm going to do the thing I said I was going to do. And it's definitely not because I got a ring light for free. So one thing that I get asked a lot about is world building. People really like to talk about world building a lot. It's a very fun subject. And I think the word itself is fun. It's a very flattering word, world building. Really puts you in the driver's seat of like creation. Very godlike stuff. Big Oppenheimer shit there. But I don't think a lot of people comprehend what world building is or how it works, or at least how it works well. So before I dive into what I think it is, I think it's worth saying what it isn't. So first of all, when a lot of people talk about world building, they tend to talk a lot about pictures and images. They come to me with maps. They come to me with character drawings. They come to me with paintings. There's all these things on the internet. It's so easy to make pictures now. People really emphasize that this is what world building is. But I gotta say, for me, as a text-based artist, that's not what world building is. People say they love my maps. They say they like the covers. There are some images that are out there of certain things, but I don't do any of that shit. Like I gotta pay someone to do all those things. I have to pay for them out of pocket, and it's not my work. Like I give some advice to the artist. They take it, they draw it out, they send back a draft, and because I am a spineless coward who doesn't want to feel like I'm wasting their time, I always say, very good job, it's a very good job, and then I accept it. So yeah, that's not from me. That's not even from the text. It's not the thing that I'm spending like 90% of my brain power trying to make for you. And what's important to say about this is that this is a matter of choice. I don't really get a lot of choice about like maps, art, cover, things like that. There are some recommendations I could put out there. There's some things that I could say, but like at the end of the day, we're all slaves to production. We got to get the book out. We got to ship this sucker onto the shelves in a big way. And I have to sort of bend toward that, where I'm putting all of my efforts is into the text. So let's put that aside. Other people say, that world building is all of the stuff you make to make the text go, like spreadsheets of history, magic systems, maps again, languages, family trees, spectrums of genders. People say this is world building, but that usually lives in a resource, a Bible, a Google Doc, whatever the hell, outside of the text. A lot of that stuff is not what I'm trying to shove people's face in. I don't want you looking up a glossary constantly to comprehend what's happening. And like for my Bible stuff that I make, that shit don't show up too often. People see enough spreadsheets, they don't want to see mine. And so that does not shape what is happening on the page to me. It is a resource. It is a structure that I give myself. It's a reminder list, but it is again, not the focus of the things I'm trying to put in front of you. So, if it's not the art that I pay people to make, and it's not the giant, messy, sloppy shitbag spreadsheets that I make to try and keep all of this crazy shit straight, then surely it's all the fun little gestures, cute little cultural details that I embed in the story, like, poems, songs, food, shoes, all that stuff. That's what world building is, right? It's the little flourishes. And I'm like, I don't think that that's quite it either, because that stuff is ornament. That stuff is occasionally indulgence. Like we've all had a moment where we're reading a book And we're suddenly like in a scene where you can tell the author has just been waiting to unload this on you. And you're reading all this exposition, all this text, all this whatever. You're thinking, what does this have to do with anything? I'm not sure why I'm reading this part. And sometimes it can be very fun. Sometimes, like, if you're a good enough writer and if you put enough thought into it, that can succeed. I would say that's only like 15 to 20% of the time. Most of the time, readers are going to get impatient and say, like, what does this have to do with anything? A great example that a lot of people cite are all the songs in Lord of the Rings. They're fun. He definitely thought about them a lot, but a lot of people skip those because they're like, this fun song about the cow and the moon and the spoon and whatever, this is not what I'm here for. Again, you can be a really good writer and make these very tolerable and fun to read, but if it is not about what the text is about, then it's ornament, it is indulgence. And again, it's possible to make that a fun thing to engage in, but that is also, to me, not necessarily world building. And so that really highlights the nature of the thing. You have to choose very carefully what to include in the text that will bring this world to life and still pertain to what is happening in the story. It is you carefully choosing these fictional things that you're making up that will bring out the text and subtext level of the conflicts of the characters. And there's a word for that besides world building, and that's writing. It's just fucking writing. That's what it is. This is a thing that I think fantasy writers, especially and science fiction writers too, get way too caught up in their heads about. Every story does world building. Even the ones set in our own reality, our own world, our own history, they do world building. A great example of this that I always point to is David Simon's Homicide: A Life on the Killing Street. This is a non-fiction work set in present tense. I know it's going to piss some people off, sorry. But it is about the lives of these police officers, these detectives, as they deal with crack, heroin, all these horrors in Baltimore. This is reality, but he's still got to choose the pieces of reality to include in the text, to highlight, to drive forward, to catalyze all the things he wants to do, of what the book is about. And that's hard. It's actually harder for real things, for real history, for reality, to make these things go than you and me being just some nerds at a desk making shit up and looking at maps and run things through all the Google Translate stuff to invent fun words. It's way harder. Reality is way stranger than that. You really have to focus on what you are choosing to include to make that go. And really what this really brings a lot of this towards is stuff that I think that a lot of people don't do in any books. And this is what I find makes books go to the next level, which is, what is the thesis of your story? What are you writing about? And usually when I say this, people start talking about, I want to talk about honor, fighting, wars, this is about romance, this is about love. Yeah, those are really big levels, but you need to kind of focus on an aspect of life that's worth talking about. And if your story doesn't have that, it's gonna feel very superficial. It's gonna feel kind of hollow. And that's the really hard part of writing. For me, for most people, is you've gotta have some there. If you're writing a big thing, if you're not writing, like, for example, a farce or like comedy or anything like that, if you're writing something that's kind of big, you've gotta have a thesis to anchor the story. I say thesis, it's a very scary word. A lot of people think that it is, some of you learn in high school where you gotta start off your essays and say, like, in this essay, I will blank, 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 blank. I don't really think of it that way. I think of it more in terms of, what's something that I haven't made up my mind about? What's something that deserves reflection? Because a book is a conversation. A novel is a conversation. It's a conversation you have with yourself. You are splitting your brain into all these facets, all these characters, all these perspectives, and trying to kind of figure out how you feel about things. That's why you can tell when someone writes a story and it's full of convictions. Like there's no nuance to anything that they're talking about. It feels like preaching. It feels like proselytizing. You're getting yelled at. You're sitting there on the bus getting yelled at by some stranger about shit that they're never going to be flexible on. It's not a great time, not a fun hang, which is why it's so much better to target something that makes you feel conflicted, something that feels substantive, but also makes you feel a little bit conflicted. And if you don't do that, then your characters aren't going to feel conflicted, and your world's not going to feel conflicted. And that's the key thing, especially in fantasy, is that if like that's the good guy, that's the bad guy. I think rich people are bad. I think bold take here. I think slavery's wrong. We shouldn't do that. Like, cool, no shit. I'm already there, my man. And if your world is not supporting, if it's not highlighting, if it's not bringing that out in any way that's interesting, then it's gonna feel pretty flat. Then you're going to be spending all this time creating ornament, creating histories, creating languages that are all there to articulate, to catalyze, to bring forward something that's not there. It's a whole lot of gesturing. It's a whole lot of kind of going through the motions. And yeah, that's the hardest part. I mean, like, if this sounds daunting, you're right. You're absolutely right. World building is a hard thing to do when you're doing it really right. And the thing that I focus on is, once I've kind of picked out my thesis, once I've kind of figured out the stuff that I want to be talking about here, every time I do a little bit of world building, I've got to figure out how it refers back to that thesis. Like in Divine Cities, it's about history. Who gets to own history? How much does history own the present? Do we even really know what history is? Can we move beyond history? Every little bit of world building that I do, like ancient texts that I had to gin up, or magical little like miracles that occur in there, that all, like, every time I just stop and say, okay, how does this refer back to history? And in the Founders Trilogy, it's about technology. It's about how it changes, about how it empowers people, and for other people it disempowers them. It's about how it can bring a better way of life, about how our wisdom sometimes lags behind our cunning. Each time that I had to invent a new type of scribing, I stopped and thought, how does this refer back to my thoughts about how people use technology, and how we sometimes use it unwisely, and how sometimes it has restricted people to people who are extremely rich and who can get a very good education. And and this sounds restrictive, but it's actually freeing. Once you realize kind of what you're doing in here, you can go nuts. Once you get the melody of a song, you can riff on it forever. But you gotta have that melody. You gotta have the right key, the right tone, and then you can really start to improvise and invent all kinds of fun things. But as a reader, if people are putting all these little flourishes, these artifices, and they're making me read all this shit about this world that you're making up, and I get the sense that there's no there, I'm not gonna have a great time. I'm not. And that's just that. So this is the first time that I've done one of these things. I don't know if I'm going to keep doing them. Just doing this for fun. If there is ever any support or interest in me doing more of these, I will. And if there's not, I don't give a shit. It's one less thing for me to do. I do want to make one more of these at the very least, in which I think about a story we all know very well that does a really good job of world building and is economical and efficient in every part and really drives in how this works. It's a little movie that I like to call Die Hard. Yeah. So tune back in when you get a chance. Thanks, y'all. Bye.